Hello and welcome to another episode of Dale and Grace Take Over the World. I'm your host, Frank Arroyo, CEO of Straight Shot Post, the full-service production company based out of Brooklyn, New York. And this is my constant co-host and wonderful executive assistant, Grace Santos. I think we're both pretty cranky this week. I'm not really sure why. It's a little cold in here in New York. I don't know. What's been up with you?
For me, it's been this week. It's just been a lot. And it feels like I can't get anything right. And so I don't know. Literally around lunchtime, I hit a point where I was like, I got super anxious. And then I was like, I I suck. And then I just went in a spiral.
All right, I hear you. I hear you, girl. So why do you suck?
I suck because I don't know how to send the proper email. I and in that there's so many subcategories of like I didn't send the right kind of schedule. Like I guess I learned a lot this week about being a project manager because I was thrown into that role this week very randomly. I went from finance and HR to all of a sudden this week was like project management week. And so yeah, I'm used to sending emails, but from an executive assistant's perspective, and sending a emails as project manager is a little different, I guess. And so I made many mistakes. And every time I would send an email, I was super anxious because I was like, I just hear Dale's voice in my head being like, this is wrong. And then lo and behold, I'll do it. And it's like, hey, when you send a schedule, don't start with the caveats. Send like, here's the schedule and then say the caveats. Or like, you sound too dry. You got to say like all the fluffy stuff. And then there was with the lunch
What
meals.
lunch?
No, the food from Joe. I have to go get your
All right,
food.
hold up. We kind of have to take a step back. This is
Oh,
gonna,
okay.
this is gonna be a little weird. Needs a little bit of context, but
Oh,
just so people know, basically, I'm one of those Tim Ferriss outsource your entire life types. When I started the company in the pandemic, step one was to sort of get my life in order. So fix my workout routines, fix my finances and my investment strategy, fix my relationships, and sort of like how much time am I going to spend with my family, with my friends, or whatever. I kind of went through all those things and when I was doing my finances, I realized like we started running the numbers, my assistants at the time, about like how long would it take if I went and bought the food and cooked food or whatever. And we came to a conclusion that it was about 8 hours. This is actually on the aggressive side. Like it's probably more than that. Around 8 hours a week it would take cooking, cleaning, everything surrounding cooking, not the eating part. So I ended up making a deal with myself. I said, okay, I'll work an extra day instead of, I would rather work an extra day to pay and just pay for the food to be taken care of. So we didn't know what to do at the time. It was in the heat of the pandemic, and I figured, okay, I can go and get one of these sort of meal kit services type thing. And so we looked that up, but I remember saying that I knew a lot of chefs and a lot of restaurants were getting hit hard by the pandemic. So I said, go and see if you can find somebody who's like looking for an odd job. They used to be a cook, and I'd rather give them the money than give it to, Amazon. And lo and behold, we found Mr. Joe Mode, who's been cooking for me for the past 2 years. So when she says that she has to go get my food, she doesn't. She's. I don't know why you even say that because he dropped.
right. He drops the food off, but today specifically, he can't come drop the food off. And so he asked me, like, can you meet my friend at like a few subway stops down? Can you come pick it up? And I said yes. And then you're like, why didn't you say no? And I was like, I didn't know I could say no. And that sent me. I was like, what? What do you mean? I'm trying to do my job. And so I was like, I can't do anything right. And then yeah. Uh huh. Yeah. And you're like, no. Yeah. Yeah.
I
Guilty.
guess. So I know, man, I'm there. I've been there. It's okay. I wish I had those powers too, man. I'll side note. I'll say, because I don't want to talk about my dating life, but I will side note this one time where I had a wonderful date with a girl. We were having a great conversation about, I get in general, about college and its value. And my current sentiment is like, it's not necessary. Okay, it's not a 100% necessary thing. It's definitely valuable for some things. And then, but if you know you want to be, dude, if you know you want to be a filmmaker from the age of 5 and you made 1,000 films by the time that you would have gone to college, like you probably don't necessarily need film school. Is one of the things, and I'm sure we can open up that can of worms on another episode. So I was just having this conversation, and the next day when I asked the girl back out again, she said, honestly, I did have a great time with you, but I just think that our views on college are different. And I was like, views on college?
Oh
She,
my
yeah,
God.
she straight up, she was like, I think that if we had kids, like it would be a problem. I was like, oh,
Whoa.
okay.
You hear
Yeah.
about religion and politics, but not school.
It's just
Oh,
everything. That's how picky people are right at this current
wow.
point. She was just like, I was like, can we have the kids first? Or maybe like, isn't this a discussion to have 25, 30 years from now or something even? And so it goes to show you that when you get something stuck in your head, you have to be really disciplined to remind yourself that it's not real. Like it hasn't happened. And I see that all the time here. And you talk about project management this week. I mean, that's so much of the game there. You're learning how to manage human beings and your clients. And so many times you get a lot of yes people in project management. And I mean, you've worked with me long enough to know that I'm here to solve their problem. I'm not here to yes them. You know what I mean? And if you solve their problem, they're going to be happy no matter what. But the desire to please is so strong in us as for whatever reason that like it totally clouds things. That's when people make schedules way too tight. That's when people overpromise or to a client. And then, of course, that's like the golden rule. Don't break that. Always under promise, over deliver, guys. And like, I see all those mistakes being made. That's why one of the major reasons why I started the company. So it's funny that I didn't, mean for you to, I guess, take it the way that you did. But really all I meant to say is like, don't forget that you have power, you have agency, and you can always just say no. Even if you're in a situation, like what's the worst thing, we always do best case, worst case, right? What's the worst thing that could happen? I don't get that meal delivered. That's the worst possible thing that happens. Now you make that call based on what else you had to do. You'd be like, would he be more pissed about not having his food, or because I'll tell you, if it was like having a meeting with a client, fuck the food, right?
Oh yeah.
So but you would figure that out, and just remember, like you have the power always. So maybe it's just
Along these lines, I remember when I first started full time here in June, I had never worked here full time. I was always part time. And I remember saying, I don't know if it'll be sustainable for me to do this job full time. And you said, how do you know? And I was like, oh, you're right. How do I know? I don't know. Even though I had that intuition, and then I was like, I don't think this is sustainable full time. But I tried it. You said, give it 3 months. So it's been 3 months. And I've adapted and I've learned, but I still do have to say it is still very hard as I imagined it to be. So yeah.
I mean, hard is hard. That's okay. I don't care. I don't mind hard.
I'm trying to decipher hard and unsustainable right now. I don't have much, as you would say, data to go off of on anything in life, because I feel like all my life I've been doing things that are not that sustainable. Like I was talking about to Sophie. I saw Sophie last night. And we were talking about how in high school is like, we were reminiscing on high school. And we talked about how it's so unsustainable. High school teachers like the most unsustainable lifestyle. Unsustainable for the student. Like you can't live your life the way you lived high school forever, of just like going to all those classes and doing all that homework and staying up and sleeping 2 hours and doing a club. And like that lifestyle, I think is so unsustainable.
I don't see. What's funny? This can bring us into the topic of Simon Sinek's podcast that I was watching. It's funny. Everything you're saying is kind of in line of like that your generation is conflict avoidant and therefore will jump, hop, skip, and jump very quickly to avoid the pain, I guess. This is for lack of a better word, but I watched his episode on Diary of a CEO, great podcast, and he has 2. And I do find him to be an incredible speaker. I think his books they're good, but they're like, he's a way better speaker than a writer in my opinion. But hearing him, so I'm a millennial and we have mostly Gen Z at the company. And it's really like him talking about how your generation operates, pros and cons, right, was super valuable for me because I don't, haven't really thought about that much. And then of course we had 2 resignations recently, which really sucked, but it helped me understand why they might have made those decisions and what I could have done to better communicate to them, being more empathetic about sort of how you guys grew up and access to things you had, and the speed at which your life moves is very different. I didn't grow up with a cell phone in my hands. I was already an adult when the iPhone came out, basically, right? No Instagram, no TikTok or whatever in my like formative sort of, adolescent years. So, getting that kind of an understanding is one thing, but like, I don't know, maybe you guys are just, it's interesting, right? You're like 3 months and you're like trying to make this, you think that's enough. Not that, I'm not saying you think that, but you think that 3 months is enough to determine the whole thing, when no matter what you do, it's going to get easier and easier with time. Like no matter what it is, and the more reps that you put in. So like you're frustrated this week because it's a new thing, and then like in a month it'll be nothing, or you know what I mean? I don't know if that makes sense. Like
I'm talking about like sustainability of like doing this long term. It's like a very, it's a skill thing, and it's also such an emotional thing of training myself to, I guess this goes into what you were talking about from the video of like Gen Z being very more sensitive.
He just said that they're conflict avoidant. So basically, he said he's heard this many times, which is similar, which the reason why it really hit me is because I was thinking about my current situation and what I could have maybe done better to help these 2 individuals. And essentially, he said that time and time again, he's heard stories where a person will join a company or, they'll maybe want to ask for a raise, but they get so afraid of having to confront their boss and ask for a raise that they just quit instead of just having that conversation. Like quitting is easier than having that conversation. And then he said that usually these conversations the stories end up with the management being like, well, why didn't you just talk to us? You totally would have been, willing to have this conversation with you. And then it's usually also that they quit and then send an email that's like, you undervalued me and blah, blah, blah. And then the management's like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
Like, oh shit, right? Which it's very similar to what happened. By the way, everything was on good terms and with these people. But like, I remember with one of them where she said to me, Dale, I thought I was doing you a favor by leaving. And I was like, what kind of a mentality is that? That's such a weird way to think about it, I thought at the time. And now I understand that instead of actually having that conversation with me, it was for whatever reason, it seemed easier to do it that way. So that's kind of what he was saying. And I don't know if you want to take that into your own life and think about how it applies, but
I mean, this is my first time being in like this kind of job. I mean, I've worked at a restaurant and that's a little different, the stakes and all. But I feel like even in college, we're also conflict avoidant. And my way of coping would be, just ball it all up, don't say anything, and then just like go cry in a corner and then come back and pretend like it's all okay. And
I don't know, like I've never
was that sustainable?
That's what I'm saying. I'm like, literally just now too. I was like, I just went and like cried in the bathroom and then I came back. That's why I was sniffling. He thought
I was... Oh, dude.
But
yo, that's hilarious. Because before we did the show, I was like, Grace, do you have a cold, bro? Because you
like,
you got a cold.
This will go away soon.
But yeah, like it not necessarily of like it has to do with what's like it has to do with work or it has to do with school, but like just life, everything. And happening, and then I don't know how to deal with it, and then it just happened. Like I just,
yeah,
I don't know how to manage.
Yeah, well, I mean, like listen, man, my only recommendation would be more of just like, okay, would you rather do that or like figure it out? Figuring out's gonna be work, but like
right. And so I feel like Gen Z. Well, for me, it's easier to just keep doing that and then not confront.
Yeah, whatever it is.
Whatever it is that I'm struggling with.
Can you at least tell the people that it's not me? Because I barely spoke to today.
No,
so I just want them to know before I start getting hate. Like no. Genuinely, I really I'm not. I don't think I did anything out of the ordinary.
I think it's. I mean, I had a talk with Sophie yesterday, and that just made me realize a lot about my life. And I don't know, just being so lost, I guess. And then on top of that, I guess all the work stress that happened. This week felt like a tsunami. Because I remember there's this moment on Wednesday, very specifically. I was remote, and it was like towards the end of the day, and then I had a lot of things to do, of like, I had to like send out invoices and like follow up on invoices, and then you told me that I had to like put all these projects in Asana. And then I was like, okay, no, that needs to happen. And then at the same time, I had like multiple people G-chatting me. This is your life, I guess, too. But then I had multiple people G-chatting me. And I was like, I don't know what to do first or who to talk to. And I don't know how to be a project manager. And then I started going into, like you said about our superpower, like going into the future and being like, oh my God, this is going to be like for the next few months, I'm going to be project manager plus HR plus finance plus a personal plus executive assistant. And I was like, this is so much. So that was that was the moment, and I like literally I just like froze. It's like I couldn't do anything.
No, she does that sometimes, guys, by the way.
I do it a lot. Yeah.
It is funny because maybe it does highlight one of the big, just like for me, the big thing this week, which is like, I would never know. By the way, and I had no idea about any of that until now, which is a problem, right? I mean, it's not a problem. Like, so here's the rule at the company, just for people listening. I think it's a great rule. Google it first. And then if you still haven't figured it out, call me. That's the rule. And so I definitely, I mean, it's up to you. Like, it's because I understand if you're like, I haven't figured out if it's something that I need to talk to you about yet. There's that.
Right. And
which I
it's
don't
like,
know if you guys have a good barometer of that. Or
exactly,
if, but
that's what I'm
like,
talking about.
but even if you don't, it's better to be safe than sorry. I mean, like, dude, if you really don't want a project manager, there's ways around that. Our producer who does this show would definitely hate it if I put something else on her plate, but I would figure that out. But for sure, you are definitely also seeing one of the like hallmarks of like a really small company, right? You've got to wear multiple hats. And maybe it is just an adjustment because all your life you were doing multiple things, but like it was like structured for you. You didn't have to figure out what the priorities were. It was school. And then whatever else your parents told you was your priority, right?
Another
Whereas,
thing
go ahead.
is
That when it was school, it was like, if I couldn't get it all done in a reasonable hour, I would just stay up and push myself and, lose sleep over it. But also so that's my instinct, to try to like stay as late as I can and finish everything, but that's also not sustainable. So
You want to save that for when it's needed.
Exactly. And so I can't do that every time. So then it's getting used to that too.
Yeah. I say it comes in stages. So if we're going to talk about it like that, like work capacity, it's funny, I keep thinking like, obviously this company is an emotional thing for me. That's obvious. I just have like learned to, I mean, I don't know, Grace, I have higher stakes in a lot of the same shit. Now, maybe it is just straight up too much, right? Because what I've been able to do is like focus it. I do a lot of stuff, but it's like a lot of the same thing. I'm talking a lot. That's it. I'm making content. I'm talking a lot. I'm reviewing videos. I complain about it and then I blow it off. But I'm not. But that's it, right? And so there's, I understand, I guess, how overwhelming it can be to have so many different kinds of responsibilities. Because you're like, all right, well, if I just had to be good at this, I'll just be good at this, and I'm chilling. But then like, there's basically you're at a place where there's too many different things. You can't possibly be good at all of it. And maybe you're struggling to like contend with that, which I would too. I'd be furious. But to your point, I would stay up and I would just make sure I wasn't a liability, but you're not, by the way. But I understand. So what I'm saying is that I understand like that push and that drive, because I am up all night looking at sales videos right now, trying to figure out how to build that, which I have no clue. I mean, I have a clue because I'm learning, right? And I do stay up at night thinking about all the things that I said I'd do the other, earlier today, that just like, there are a million things, and it does feel incredibly overwhelming. And I guess I'm sure you've heard me say this to other people, but maybe you need to hear it again, which is like, this is the art of honestly just ignoring shit. Like literally, you just prioritize and you just ignore a whole bunch of stuff. Is kind of the only way I've been able to get out of it, And it's the kind of thing where I guess you have to be thinking from my perspective that like, I'm guessing though. So let me start there. I'm making an educated guess, a hypothesis that if I ask you to do something, it's not more than you can handle, right? And then if all of a sudden though, you realize, we might be hitting a wall, like I have to know, right?
Mm-hmm. And that was a
big lesson that I learned, that I can say that I can say, okay, or just ask you, because I have all these tasks. And before, I didn't know until I brought it up that you don't expect me to do all of them, because I thought you did, like, expect me to do everything now. And I didn't know. And when I brought it up, I was like, oh, it was that simple. Just to be like, I can't do it all. And you're like, I know. And I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those, yeah, this is, I mean, it goes back to communication and everything.
Yeah.
And to me, I mean, it's not complicated. I'm like, I assume that you don't think
Yeah.
I'm an idiot.
But that was not. I just
understand.
think that you're an idiot, but I didn't.
I know, but I'm saying like that's in my head. That's
That's
how
your
it's.
head,
That's
yeah.
what I say. I'm like, nah, come on.
No,
She
I
doesn't
have no
think. She
idea.
doesn't think I'm that guy. But hey, look, on that note, same line of thought. Like this was the same thing that happened when somebody said, "Oh, Dale, I thought I was doing you a favor," or, I was afraid. This was the other thing I learned, and I talked to my business coaches about this. Like, oh, I was afraid that you just dropped me, like without any notice. You remember that? And then
Yeah,
I was
like,
what are you talking about? Why? Yeah, like what are you talking about? That's not like, you can't do that. What do you mean? But lo and behold, you absolutely can do that. And I'll quickly say why. My business coaches enlightened me. But for me, I was like, I realized at that time, dude, I've been a freelancer my whole life, bro. I've been fired on the spot, but like on set, been yelled at in front of people. I've gone through all of it, right? And I realized that what my sort of standards and expectations are just different than yours. And yours is blanket, right? Like other people's. And they may not actually know these things that I know because they're young and they're inexperienced. And I'm forgetting, like, probably I thought that way at some point. But I also was never at a company. So job security was never a thing I mean, it's funny. I wasn't a big fan of that part of freelancing, the uncertainty of it all. But you kind of learn to just, you adapt, like you said. And that became just like who I was. So I never even thought about like a company we could part ways at any time, any day. I had no loyalty to nobody. I had no feelings about any company I was at either, which also means, right? So now that they're in this situation, they hear that things aren't going well. I don't know what those feelings are like because I never had that ever happen, like on the other side. And so I'm guessing. And the problem is, of course, when I'm guessing, it's from my limited perspective. I mean, empathy is a core value. I work on it every day, but like there's always some new shit. So I've told you in the past, like, I have some incredible women at the company and you being one of them, and you guys are almost like too mature. Like, I don't know what you're feeling half the time. And so obviously I'm going to keep pushing you guys to get better and improve. But if nobody communicates any kind of feedback back to me, then I'm just going to go on my instincts. And honestly, I've learned that my personal threshold for a lot is just higher and more malleable or whatever, like, and I realize that's not something I should be putting on anybody else. But if nobody's, you know what I mean? But if I don't have that feedback, and then obviously, yeah, I know we need HR, blah, blah, blah. Even though I'm open and people tell me the truth, they're not really going to tell me the whole truth. I'm their boss. Like, I get it, man. I'm struggling in the same area. But I think what you're talking about is just like really valuable because I'm sure there's a lot of people that feel that way.
And I want to be clear, this is not to rack on you. This is like my learnings.
Yeah, I mean, that's also okay. I don't mind being criticized and checked. But this time I know it wasn't me. I'm just saying, I know when like I think about it, I'm like, the just so people know, like she's project managing, but like she's just sending an email on my behalf. Like I'm making sure she's not actually like dealing with all of the, I'm just like the easier stuff, learning how to send an email, learning how to schedule an Asana, which is like tedious, but not difficult.
But it was just I feel like the fact of, I guess because this week was such a new thing and every single thing that I did was wrong. And then I would get it from you. And then that was hard.
Yeah. But you have to, again, like you got to remember, like I adjust my speed and my tone towards the person. Like you've never, ever, well, unless you're not telling me, it's never been a thing before. You know what I mean? No. Yeah. So that's why it's like, why would you expect me to operate any differently if it's been working? Yeah. Just as a general thing, this is a great like little, it's a morality thing. All right. Basically, this is what I remember. This is an example. So you're at a lunch table, right? A bunch of people at our lunch table, and you have a friend that asks you for a quarter he asks you for a quarter to get something, right? And you're like, yeah, no problem. So every day he asks you for a quarter to go get something. And then one day you flip out on the kid. Like, bro, you're taking my money, blah, blah, blah. I can't believe this. Okay. And then the question is like, who's at fault here though? Because if he asks and he got it every time, why would he know that's like something was wrong? And so now all that's happening is you're just yelling at a guy who had no idea. he would, you know what I mean? So it's like a question about ignorance. I love that, just thinking about that as like a thought experiment. Like, because is what you're saying is that the behavior that was reinforced was not punished if it was meant to be bad. So then it just becomes normal behavior, right? In fact, it's only encouraged because he gets a snack every day. So why wouldn't he ask for the quarter to get the snack, right? So it's those kinds of things that like I think about that when it comes to like work and business, and like, what do you reinforce? What do you punish? How do you praise? And this is not a surprise, but I struggle with the praising part. I've been working recently to figure out, well, how do we praise? What do we praise for? Because again, for me, a lot of my belief system comes from what I think of me. Like, that's it. I'm just playing a game to beat my best. But that's because I think I'm better than most people, right? And I have evidence and all that makes me feel and believe it. Like, I believe that I'm going to be a master of storytelling, that I have an incredible amount of skill at building systems. That's why I casted myself, quote unquote, in this role. And so literally I've had it, you know, people tell me I suck all the time, and it just doesn't mean anything to me because I think they suck. So their opinion's useless. You know what I mean? And I realize, obviously, especially like young in your career, being a mentor figure, somehow I became this really reluctant. I never wanted to be anybody's mentor, but I am, right? This is what I took this path, and now I'm here and I'm training and I'm investing in young people. And I'm realizing like they do need to hear good job. They do need to hear that they're a good student in class, you know? That kind of shit does matter because they don't have any other real barometer. That's all they have is 20 years of, did I get a good grade or not, to tell them that they have value, I guess. I don't know. And so I'm struggling with that part, you know? And so I'm not necessarily surprised to hear that you had a rough week. But I also want to say that I hope you remember it's 1 week, right? You had a bad week. Maybe I was a little harsh. If I was, I apologize, you know? But you should know that at no point during this week did my opinion of you ever change. I still think you're a superstar. Still think you're doing wonderful amidst all the challenges that you've been given. So maybe I need to show it or something?
No, this is too weird. I'm not used to this.
I don't mind it. I'm learning. I got to learn how to praise.
I don't know how to move forward from here. That was a long conversation.
I mean, it was worth it. I don't think we need to change. Like, fuck the script. You know what I mean? Honestly, like, to me, if there's some real shit that's going on, dude, I mean, the whole point of this podcast is like, this is what it is.
Yeah.
Sometimes you got to go and cry it out in the bathroom over, in my opinion, like nothing that's groundbreaking. Just to be clear, guys, like sometimes it's okay. I guess let me start by saying that, like, it is okay to feel overwhelmed, even if you're not, like, just to be clear, there wasn't no 12-hour day. She left at 6 every day this week. She came and went as she pleased. I didn't even really speak to her that much this week. Like, it was a normal week by company standards, I guess. But for her, you know, and I don't mean to put words into your mouth or anything, but like, you know, for you, it seems like it was a bad week for you. Doesn't mean that the company, like, you know, it wasn't a bad week at the company. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. Like, work-wise, it was normal. I mean, yeah, normal.
Yeah, so tell me though, like, so how do you push through?
How do I push through? I mean,
it's a Friday. You made it.
I did. How do I push through? I don't know. I feel like I don't know how not to push through. I don't know how to just be like,
oh, I need to take a day today because I'm not feeling well. I feel like that's all I know, just to like put on a smile and just keep going. And then once I reach Friday, I'm like, I specifically did not schedule anything for this Friday. Usually I go out and do something. But this Friday, I made sure to take time and be like, no, I had not schedule anything, and I'm just going to go home and sleep early, and that'll be my thing. Or sometimes sometimes my form of therapeuticness to deal with the week will be to go to a studio. I have this like studio space and just dance it out.
Hey, this is Dale and Grace from the future, and I just wanted to clarify after watching this episode, and I was thinking about the specific instance of when I said that I cried earlier, and I was thinking, Dale asked, what would the best scenario be? Like, is that how you want to be dealing with your emotions? And I thought about it. And in this instance, it was the choice that I made, that I wanted to do that, because I realized that I woke up already not feeling great today. And I knew that if I just went straight into recording the podcast, I would be a little off and I wouldn't feel right. So I made the decision to go to the bathroom and just cry it out for a little bit. And then I came back to the podcast and I felt fine. And we had a great conversation. So I wanted to shed some light on that and say that it's not necessarily all a negative thing. It's kind of letting myself emote and then let the emotions pass and then move on and get to do what I'm planning to do well.
All right. And back to the show. You got to have something, you know, because the one thing, I guess maybe this might be another helpful recommendation is like whatever headspace you've been in this week, like that's not the time to make any decisions, guys. Just to be clear, if you're having a bad week, that is not the time. Like literally, I just, if ever, because I get moody too, bro. Grace knows when I want to burn the world down. Like she's there. And every time I'm like, dude, my better self, like just don't do anything. That's actually the answer. You just need time. Now is not the time to make any thinking, to do all the critical thinking. You're just not, you're in a bad mood. You're going to be critical. Like everything will get skewed. Mm-hmm. So my recommendation to you would be like, yeah, well, next month is going to be a little crazy, right?
Yeah.
But like you take 2 weeks, come back and be like, and kind of think about what was it really? Was it new things? Was it too many things? Because there's a big difference, right? Was it that you're uncomfortable not being good at things, which you've mentioned, I think, in other podcasts?
Yes.
Right? Maybe it was actually the combination. Because to me, sometimes I'm like, I can take 4 of the 5, but if all 5 come together, I fucking die, you know? Mm-hmm. And so maybe it's some combination where you're like, yeah, I guess mad respect for pushing through. Hopefully you're okay. Obviously, I assume that if you were, by the way, it's so hard to have these kinds of episodes, but like, I think we have a really healthy relationship, you and I. So I hope you don't mind me like just being frank, but like, I do think you would have said something to me if it was something that really mattered in the long run, not like.
I'm terrible at saying what I'm feeling in the short term. Like I'm only after I process it and I go through it afterwards, I can like talk about it, but I'm really bad at, yeah.
Yeah. Cause we've had those conversations. I'm also learn when you do stare out and stuff. I'm like, okay. But you know, yeah, there was one time where Grace came in and I said, hey, how you doing? I don't remember what I said. Actually, I don't think I was, I think I wasn't, I was also just like, hey, let's just get to work. I forgot what I said.
No. Is it the time I cried?
Yeah.
Wait, no, you came, I opened the door and you're like, all right, you messed up. You and Mike both messed up. That's exactly what you said. And then you went
because
downstairs.
You were crying about you were not crying about that though. The
I wasn't
time that you were crying
about
your
doctor
appointment or something. Yeah.
But no, I wasn't crying about that, but it was a funny coincidence because I had a mask on and I wasn't crying yet. And then you're like, you and Myra messed up and you walked away. And when you came back, I was like crying.
And you were like, oh, did I do that? And I was like, no. This is something else. But it was.
Yo, dude, I felt so bad. I felt so bad. And it had nothing to do with any of that. But I guess it goes to show you as a business owner, like you don't know where they're coming in from. That's one of the things. So my priority is speed. My priority in communication is speed. That's what makes me rough around the edges, is it's very efficient. And so as I try to build a company, I'm trying to build it in a manner where we can be efficient. So I don't have to say, it is, again, I'm not saying there's a right or wrong. And I don't even know if this is going to work. And obviously, if it doesn't work, I'll change. But ideally, if nobody felt bad, if we got into a meeting, I said, hey, you messed up, fix this. And then you said, hey, going to fix it now. Sorry, I messed up. I'm writing it down. I'll make sure I do the adjustments never to try to avoid this in the future. And that's the whole conversation. Great to me, honestly. But I understand that, you know, sometimes just it feels like you're being yelled at or something. And I don't know where their headspace is. And I wish it was like that is what I'm saying. It's a hybrid version of that. And it's funny because I bet, the people that are closest to me at the company right now are probably Grace and the producer of this podcast who sees a little bit more of what I'm really like. And I bet they just laugh when I am so peppy and happy in these meetings. Happy Friday, everybody, right? Every morning. Happy Thursday. Happy Wednesday, guys. Work hard, be nice, and then I get off the call and I'm just like, back to being a grumpy guy, you know what I mean? So I have to put a lot of work in to do that. And I have no idea how this is going to sound, but I just want to move fast. I have a lot of control over my emotions. I feel them. It goes back to that thing where it's like, nobody can really touch my ego or anything. So I just tell me what's wrong. I'm going to fix it. That's kind of my thing. I want to move fast. That's really what it comes down to. So, but I'm realizing man, people, I have to really, this is the INTJ constant plight of the world, and I've been working really hard at it. So if I failed you this week, I do apologize.
When I did come in that one time, I want to clarify, like when I came in and I did start crying, like you gave me the space to do that. You're like, oh, here's your tissues, like do your thing. So, and then I felt fine.
Yeah, I mean, it's just empathy and stuff. But like, I just don't want to be the cause, dude. I don't want this company to be a place that creates stress and like pain in their lives. There's enough of that already. I want this to be a place where they're happy to come. They can get the opposite. They can get away. They can fucking do their work, get better at something, have fake adversity. That's the thing. The fun kind.
In the midst of my stress, it was like flip-flopping back and forth where I was really stressed, but then I was just picturing myself, 2 weeks ahead, like being able to do it easily and being like, I was like, I'm learning a new skill. So this is a good thing. It's just like growing pains. But at the same time, like...
Doesn't mean it doesn't hurt in the moment though, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I do the same thing. I keep telling them, it's like, yeah, it's like I'm walking on walking through the fire. Like, I get it. I'm going to we're in a recession. Things are bad. Dale, on the other side, you're going to win though. And I'm like, yeah. But before that, I got to go through hell, right? Yeah. And I'm like, all right. So it's still going to, like, I got it. My head is in the right place. It's long-term minded. My eye is on the prize, but that doesn't mean that in the moment, it doesn't hurt. You know what I mean? And so that's where, like, I don't blame you. And I do think that you would have communicated with me if it was something that you needed to, considering you were even in the office, like, I guess more than usual this week, it felt like. So I just would assume that you would have spoken to me. And so it's one of those things where, yeah, being able to figure your shit out is really valuable. And it's interesting to think about this, because there is the question of like, should you have said something? I feel like so many people in your generation would have like said something immediately.
Oh.
Which by the way, I'm not saying right or wrong, but I'll just say personally, I respect that you're like, maybe it's me. Let me figure that out and let me get through this for 1 week or 2 weeks. Let me figure it out. And then if it needs to be a conversation, then we'll have it. I'll give everybody here another good tip along these same lines. It's like the sort of work-life balance conversation. There was a guy who was here a couple of years ago who I called him at 7:38 one day. I called the guy once. So in his entire time here, I called him once at 7:38, and he was just like, he picked up the phone and was just like, hey, listen, man, look, I'm answering the phone, but like, and gave me some whole spiel before we even got into it about like work life and this and that. And I come back to the same thing. I'm like, I know that's why you don't get called every day. You know what I mean? Like, I'm aware. And Simon talks about this in his podcast too, but today, like this day, this moment, these circumstances, I needed to call you. And so I think there's this big distinction of like, is it a pattern? Is it a culture? Or is it that moment, that day? That's the big distinction. I think that when you're coming into the beginning of your careers or whatever, you guys kind of need to understand that. And I'm telling you right now, if it's not a pattern and you generally feel like you're cared for and that your boss is cared for you, then it's a part of a team. And I'm like, always answer the call. I call that the high value, low stakes, always a win-win. Like, what were you going to do? You had a choice. I'm going to watch 30 minutes of Netflix or take a 30-minute call with my boss at 8:00. Like, to me, it's a no-brainer, unless it's like a pattern and a piece of a culture or something, right? Like, I don't see how that's the easiest thing I could do. I talk to people on the phone normally. To me, I'm like, it's a great way to build like trust and value. When I ask people to go above and beyond, when I need the nights and weekends, it's clear. It's usually project reliant, and it's not super often, and that's where there is this distinction. So like, I used to feel guilty about it every time. And now I'm a little bit more on the side of, it's a team sport and it's going to happen. Like, it's guaranteed to happen sometimes. And hopefully everybody cares about the thing, not as much as me, but like enough to push it forward when it needs to be pushed forward. And by the way, not to mention, we're hourly. We're not salary, because everybody complained on salary when they had to work nights and weekends. I saw it throughout my whole career. So I just kept it hourly. So I feel even less bad if I say, hey, you got to work this weekend. I know they're getting paid and compensated for that time. And, there's a full transparency there. Wow, this episode turned into like health and wellness of like employees. What'd your therapist say?
My therapist? I didn't see her this week.
Oh, maybe Grace.
I mean, I see her bi-weekly. It's always like this.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Sounds like
next week
we're gonna have a spicy episode next week. If I need a talking to, make sure it happens, okay? I'll trust you to do that, all right?
Okay. I wouldn't trust myself with that yet. Work in progress. I'm terrible at communicating still, my feelings. Okay.
Well, whatever. We're about to do this next week. You very conveniently chose this day during the podcast to unload. So let's do it again next week and see what happens from there. Yeah, I mean, I guess let's jump into it. So,
Question?
yeah, you want to go first this week?
Sure.
Since we were talking about.
Oh, hold on.
Oh,
You came prepared this time, I can tell.
Yeah. What is your crime of choice?
My crime of choice, as in which one do I think would be the coolest to commit, or which one? Yeah, like what? Help me understand.
Which one would you like kill it in? Ha, pun.
Oh, which one would I be good at? I think I would be really good at some like white collar Ponzi scheme type shit. I just think I don't think anybody would ever know, bro. I would be out. I'd be in the Cayman Islands. Nobody'd change my identity and shit with everybody's money. I think I could be good at that.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'll take that. I like that.
Yeah, hopefully we don't have to do it that way.
No.
And we could just make great content, tell great stories, build a wonderful audience, and help people, be entertained or find some piece of utility. And my question for you this week, Grace, it's funny. I like had different ones throughout the week, and now I feel the desire to just come up with something completely different. When you're in a shitty mood, what band, musician, or song do you play to pull yourself out of it?
Oh, man. No. I hate talking about my music taste. To pull me out? Honestly, I'm debating between, I have this, I don't have one artist, but I have this playlist of movie songs from my childhood and also a playlist of anime songs from my childhood. Two different playlists, and they both kind of play that role, and it's really up to if I'm feeling an American happy or feeling like a Japanese happy. Oh, no. Scratch everything. The song that gets me going is Vivir Mi Vida. Mark Anthony. I don't know why.
Really?
I listen to that and I'm like,
Wow, that's a good one, baby. And with that said, guys, we're going to wrap another one up. We'll see where we come into it next week. Everybody, wish Grace a great, wonderful, happy weekend. I'll make sure she gets extra salt and pepper ribs at the company brunch. So, Grace, thank you for just being real. That's all I want, man. And I hope it was really valuable for people to hear a bit about what your journey's like here too, because I think they understand what being the owner of a company can come with as far as the stress and all of that. But it's for all the other people trying to build it with them, it can be also just as difficult at times, right? So I'm really glad that you were able to share that with people, and I hope that they got some value out of that. And I know I'm certainly gonna walk away and try to make adjustments to help make things a little easier too. So yeah, we didn't mean to make it a downer of an episode, guys, but it's real. So deal with it and catch us next time as Dale and Grace continue to try to take over the world. Work hard, be nice, guys, and as always, keep changing. Thank you. Peace.